this is Tony Hendley, and I want to welcome you to Elevate. I'm joined here with Pastor Paul Chicato, and today we have some great things we're going to be talking about. Before we get into that, I just want to explain a few things about Elevate, where you can go to access these videos. You can go on, we have a YouTube channel, it's under A.A. Hendley, it's H-E-N-D-L-E-Y. And you can go on there, you can download them, you can watch them, you can share them with others, and we encourage you to do that. I want to explain the reason we're doing these videos. One is, Pastor Paul here, he's a pastor of a church, and has a group of people that he teaches in leadership, and I've served in the church for a number of years teaching leadership and working with leaders, but we realized that there was a need, and it was for a broader audience, because what we want to do is we want to add value to others. We want to be able to give the information that and the principles that we've applied in our lives and our leadership principles to others. That's why we've created this video. And I'm joined here with Pastor Paul, and Pastor Paul just celebrated, they had a big event. They celebrated 10 years of the existence of Powerhouse Church, and I'm going to ask him to introduce and talk a little bit about that celebration, and then we'll get into our topic today.
Yeah, my name is Pastor Paul Chicato. I've just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of being here at this location as far as full-time pastoring, but 20 years of full-time ministry. And so it was a great blessing to have that celebration. All of our church was here. Everybody was very excited. It was a wonderful time together. And then also 20 years of full-time marriage. So, we've been blessed. Awesome. And this has been a great year for us. We've seen wonderful things happen. Our leaders have really grown. We've learned to be able to give our leaders the opportunity to be able to express their creativity and their abilities and their skills that are necessary in order to help run the ministry, because we know that we can't do it on our own, my brother.
Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah, and I've been privileged because I've been on the board with Powerhouse from its inception, from the very beginning.
That's right.
And Pastor Paul and I go way back to youth camps, and I've seen this church start with a little building downtown, go to a school, and now they have their own building, and a great facility, a great group of people. We came together, we celebrated, rejoiced, and Pastor Paul shared that journey with us, which is awesome. And that kind of brings us to our topic today. We're going to be talking a little bit about values. And when we talk about values, some would call it core beliefs. Values are it's our compass. One writer wrote that it's our moral compass in not only in our organization but in our lives. And as a leader, we have to, effective leaders have to know what they believe.
Yes.
If I've seen leaders, even in early leadership for myself, not really being able to define who I was, and because of that, getting off course. Yeah. And so values are so important. What we hold dear. I've seen people that will say, "Well, this is what I value," but their actions are different. Yeah. And so we want to share a little bit about values today. When you look at values, you think, and I said it's a moral compass, but you think it's our guide. It guides the ship, it guides the leadership, it guides organizations, as well as our personal life. And Pastor Paul, I want you to share a little bit about, I know you just taught to your church recently on core beliefs. Share a little bit about the importance of values in our personal life as well as leadership.
Yes. Core values are really something that, whether you be in your home or your ministry or your job, really, I believe that those are things that you need to establish even before you endeavor to do a ministry or a business on your own, simply because what it does is it is simply a guideline to keep you accountable to your own mission and to your own vision. If you have that set of core values, it also tells people, this is who I am because this is what I believe. And so, if you're ever accused of being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Well, the truth is, if you have those core values in place, there's no doubt about who you are as a person.
That's right.
And core values give you that. And so we developed a set of core values in our church that when you walk out those doors, people can say, "Oh, those are Powerhouse Church people." But the same thing goes also for your own home. Maybe your home has a set of core values, so that way you'd have a standard to live by. It keeps you accountable.
Yeah, very good. When you think about it, if you and I endeavor to do something, say start a business.
Yes.
And we determine, I ask you, what are your values? You say, my family is right up top. They're my value.
Yep.
So you start that business and now you're working 60, 80 hours a week and you're not spending, you're making finances, but you're not spending any time with your family. So that's not in accordance. It's not working with your values,
right.
isn't it?
No.
And values guide those actions.
They sure do.
Yeah,
They sure
and
do.
I've seen in organizations to where people have put down, well, we value quality or we value excellence, but then they do things shoddy. But then I've also seen where, and let's touch on this, values also determine our decisions.
They sure do.
As in our personal life as well as in organizations.
Yeah.
And how would you describe that for yourself? How does that guide you when you make decisions in your church?
You know, because of the fact that our church has a specific set of core values to live by, it's a picture of what our church looks like when we talk about core values.
Okay.
When you see us act in accordance to those core values, you would say, yeah, Powerhouse Church people do those type of things. That's what they truly believe. But what it does, it creates a conviction, because the moment I act outside of that, I know that my brother or sister could be close enough that they would say, Pastor Paul, you said that you don't believe that, but yet you are acting opposite of what you say you believe.
Right.
And so as a result, I realize that whatever I say that I'm going to live, that means I don't just live it out in front of people. It means behind the scenes and out in front of people.
Right.
And so it brings conviction. So I know I need to be careful of how I live.
Sure, that's good. In organizations, we're all faced with opportunities. I remember being part of a church years ago that their value was winning souls. That was what they were known for. They did events that were geared towards winning souls. They preached for winning souls. Everything was about salvation.
Yeah.
And of course there was deeper teaching in different settings, but that was their value. That was their mission. And somebody came and said, we want to finance putting you on TV. And the pastor was, well, if you want to give the finances, let's put it towards reaching the homeless, because that was their value.
Yes.
And it guided that decision. I'm using that as an example, but even in our personal life, if taking a job, for me, we teach in Elevate that in order to have vision, first you have to have your values in set. In other words, this is what my values, this is what's important to me. And if it's important to me and it's important to the organization, then my vision, that guides my vision.
That's right.
So and when we teach that first of all, you need to look at what, because values can be, sometimes young people are determined by their parents. They're determined by other organizations, but we have to look at our own life. As we grow up, we become fathers and husbands and leaders. What's important to me? And one of the things we start off with is, God is number one.
That's right.
Okay, so if my most important thing is God, my relationship with God, then my life has to line up, like you're saying, with accordance with that.
Yes.
So my actions have to be evidence that is my value.
That's right.
In other words, if I do, if I have an opportunity to, let's back up. If God is number one, then my value, then I have to be in church. I have to worship. I have to have prayer time. I have to have Bible time.
Yes.
And that's kind of how we align it is, okay, my values God. Now my vision is to have a closer relationship with God.
Yes.
Now my daily activities have to come in alignment with that.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about the importance of daily activities that coincide with your values.
Yeah. What's great about core values is that it really puts you in a position not to deviate from something you know to be true to yourself, to your heart, to things that maybe God has specifically told you how to live. And what it does is it really is a roadmap more than anything.
Right.
That means that anything and everything that I do, I know that if this is a top priority in my life, it probably is right in alignment with a core value of some sort. Yeah. And so, like you say, family, for instance, that's the top of my list. Even as important as ministry is, and I love ministry, I'm passionate about it, but it doesn't supersede the one thing that God has blessed me with, and that's my family.
That's your first ministry.
It's my first ministry. That's why I make sure that I put time into that first before I give time into everything else.
Right.
But my core values have guided that very thing.
Very good, yeah. And I like the analogy, it's a roadmap.
Yes.
Because, and I want to regress just a bit here. One of the outcomes we hope with these videos is we're going to give you some action steps.
Come on. Yeah.
And what we want you to do is be able to take away from this setting and say, okay, I'm going to, because here's the reality. If I go up and I talk to somebody about values, sometimes they can name them off, sometimes they can't. But their actions might not be in alignment with what they're saying. And that's why it's important to write things down.
Yes.
To have it before you. You know, years ago when I was in college, I wrote down, everything that, and I still have that. This is my values. Now they've changed over time. And the reason I say that is because at that time I was single. Okay, so family was still important, but it had a different position, so to speak. My mom was still alive. I had, that was of value. But but once I got married, now my wife and my children are, they're right up. It's God. The way I look at it is it's God first of all, and then myself. Because if I don't take care of myself, then I'm not going to be able to take care of my family.
No, it's true. It's funny because when we did the core values for our church, it really was fun because what it did is it required that I go to God and ask the Lord, really, how do you want this church to react in every situation?
Right.
When we're out there and we say we're a part of this congregation of believers, what is going to set us apart? Well, that's what core values do. It sets you apart. It doesn't make you any more special, but what it does is it uniquely qualifies you for something that maybe another church is qualified. That other churches have different qualifications. So what the Lord really did with us when he spoke to us was he took us back to the Acts chapter 2.
Okay.
And the Lord's really been showing me is that, Paul, we need to get back to that original church. That church's foundation was a good one.
Right.
And so sometimes we've deviated and kind of fallen away from that original church. And so what he did is he gave me an acronym for the word ACTS.
Okay.
The letter A began with action, because if you look at the first church, they became soul winners overnight.
Yes, sir.
They went into action. They did something with their faith. The second one was to be Christ-like. That means they weren't just sharing about the Lord, they also had an attitude that reflected the nature of Christ.
Right.
Then the third one was truth. Something that not just the church, but people in general have kind of swayed, and we've called it being at peace when in reality it's called tolerance. And so what happens is we divide what God's word calls truth. Well, the Lord said, I want you to get back to that truth. That's more important than anything, because the truth keeps you free. It don't only just sets you free, but if you hold it, it keeps you free.
It keeps you free. Very
and then the last one was share. And so the S in the word acts. So now we share also, not just our truth, but we share salvation. We share whatever God has given in our heart. We share that with people.
That's good. And how important do you think you shared that God spoke to you about the values of the believer, the church. How important do you think, you look at your personal life, what are your importance there, your values? Now, how did you gain those values? Did you gain them through, because you were born, under this family and you were raised a certain way? Or was this something that you gained, tools that you gained on your journey, or that you wanted to model after somebody?
You know what? These values have been a lifetime of learning them.
Yes.
It's taken me, well, I'm 45, I hope to most of the viewers I look a lot younger than that, but anyway, my point is that I've gleaned a lot from, like, my grandfather, who was a full-time minister, a wonderful man who really was my father. He was my father. He raised me, many reasons as to why I ended up being with him, but he ended up being my father. My spiritual father, my pastor, friendships like yourself. I have gleaned from that
Sure.
over a period of my life, and I realize there are certain unique qualities in every individual, but there's things that are important to them. Why is it important to you, Tony?
Right.
Why is it important to you, Pastor? Why is it important to you, Pop?
Yeah.
You know, my grandfather.
Yeah.
Why is it important? Well, those things that were nuggets to you, those gold nuggets that God shared with you, I'm like, that's important to me too.
Right.
That
That's
makes
good.
sense, and I've applied a lot of that to my life as a result.
And I like that. And for our viewers, if maybe you're younger and you're trying to figure out, what are my values? How am I going to incorporate that in my life? Find good role models.
Yeah.
Find people that you aspire. If for instance, I always think of athletes.
Yeah.
I see people that are aspiring to be athletes, and they can find a person that they can model that after. And not only in the abilities, but also in their ethics.
That's exactly right.
And how they can incorporate that in their life. So as a family man, you have 2 children and your wife. How important, or how often do you and your wife, when you came together, were your values, were they the same when you got married, or did you have to work those together?
That's a good question, because they had to be the same.
Yes.
Not because we don't have unique ideas and creativity, not that we don't have different personalities and qualities about ourselves, but the value system that we adhered to was a value system that we knew that we could find in God's Word.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we didn't agree on those, we knew that even it's kind of like the link in a chain. If one chain is broke, even though it's there, it's still strong enough to hold that chain. At some point, if there's enough tension, that broken one, at some point will loosen up and eventually come loose, and it'll break the rest of the chain apart. My point is that that's the problem if the values are not the same, and as a result, you and I know, being that you've done so much counseling and ministering to lives, we've seen marriages fall apart simply because, granted, we like these 2 things, but these 2 things they thought they could just get through it, and they found out they couldn't. There was a break in the link in that chain.
That's right. And so it's important that, and we're closing now, but I want to give a few closing remarks, and I hope this has helped somebody, because as leaders of organizations, as individuals, as a single man, I wrote down my values.
Yes.
And when I got married, my wife and I, it was, as Pastor Paul said, it was so important that we had the same. First of all, that was a determining factor of who I married.
Yeah.
Because if God wasn't number one in her life, if she didn't have the same priorities that I had, then that wasn't going to work. And we know that's not going to work, as we've seen. So what I want you to do for our viewers, our action plan for this week is, sit down and write out what are your values. Now, I'll give you a couple of little ideas here, and I said one earlier. For me, number 1 is God, my relationship with God. And then number 2, now a lot of people would say, well, why is it you? Why isn't it your family? Well, first of all, when I say that that I'm important in the sense is that I need to take care of myself. That puts an emphasis because there's an outcome that I desire.
Yes.
I need to take care of myself spiritually, emotionally, physically. That way I can be there for my family because they're of value.
Yeah.
And then you go on from there, what else is important to me, whatever values. So listen, if you want more information on what we do on Pastor Paul and myself, at the end you'll see a website, Pastor Paul at Powerhouse Church in Bakersfield. What's your website?
It's www.powerhousechurch.us.
US, very good. And mine is just Tony Hendley. It's with a D. It's TonyHendley.org. You can go on there. You can find some things. We have some, a real exciting time. We have some other things that are coming up.
Yes.
We're going to be adding things. We're going to, as we share these videos, we're going to let you know of some greater resources that we're putting together, and we hope that you'll take advantage. Again, we're here to add value, and this is. We hope that this helps with that.
Amen.
That's
God bless.